Hello and welcome to week 8 of the Black and White Football Podcast. It is October 27th right now. We have a lot of good stuff to talk about, a lot of good games to talk about. We're going to hop right into the trades, the potential trade talks early on. There's a lot going on with that right now.
Yep.
Of course, I'm joined with my co-host, Josh.
How's it going?
Josh Mason. And we're very excited to start talking to you guys about all of this.
Definitely.
So, trades.
Yeah, we've been, there's a guy. He's a source, but we'll see. Maybe some of these trades, we'll see that Stephon Gilmore is being shopped by the Patriots potentially. Maybe the Patriots just feel like they don't want to pay that salary and they want to kind of move on. So they're looking maybe potentially the Browns. We'll see. It seems the Browns are trying to be really aggressive at the trade deadline because they really want to make their team as good as possible. And also the Browns have potentially looked at acquiring Adam Thielen from the Vikings because the Vikings really could acquire the picks and they would be able to get more assets so they could get better next season because they're probably not going to make the playoffs as well in a stacked division with the Packers and the Bears and really the Lions even too are better than them this season. So
yeah, a lot of these bad teams right now are in sell mode.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably going to be a lot of stuff happening before the trade deadline. Of course, the guy that we're talking about, he's been reliable in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to take everything he says with a grain of salt, but we're going off of a lot of his information just during this segment because there's some juicy potential trades.
Mm-hmm.
So true or not, at least it'll be fun to talk about.
Exactly.
You mentioned Stephon Gilmore already, Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas is another one that they were saying could be traded, which would be pretty crazy.
Potentially Jameis Winston even maybe saying the Cowboys might be looking at Jameis Winston. So that would be very interesting. I think that'd be a great spot for Jameis Winston to go to potentially. I still think they don't have a line to block for him though. So how many interceptions is he going to throw there?
And the thing is, if he went there and played well, he could potentially take over that job too.
Exactly.
So that would be a very interesting spot to see him go to. Another potential trade with Zach Ertz to the Ravens.
Definitely.
Which would be interesting. He's injured right now, unfortunately, but it would be a better spot for Zach Ertz, that's for sure. And having Mark Andrews and Zach Ertz as a 1-2 tight end would be probably
ridiculous.
The best tight end duo in the league. 'Cause that's just crazy.
Ridiculous.
And with how much Lamar likes to use tight ends, that could really help out the offense. So we'll see what happens. These are a few. There's probably a bunch going on behind closed doors that we don't even know about right now. So we'll see. I think the deadline's, week 8 or something?
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming up. It's almost here. So the next week should be pretty crazy with trades and whatnot. But moving on from the trades into the games, which we have a lot of good games to talk about today.
We had some great games.
Some really good games last week. Really, really good. Just some classic catches, some really classic games. There were just... This year, football has just been incredible. The quality of it.
It really has been.
You have wide receiver 1 through wide receiver 3, 4, making incredible catches. Just people you haven't even heard of making crazy catches. It's been a lot of fun. Defenses just playing really great. A lot of teams are good that were bad last year and vice versa. This is one of those matchups where both of these teams have really sucked in the past 5 years. I mean, longer than that, but for current memory, the past 5 years they've been really bad.
Yeah.
And now they're two respectable teams at 5-2 and 3-3. Both teams still look pretty good and an actual force. And Raiders, they're looking like they could be contenders within the next year or two if they keep making the right moves. And,
yeah.
The Buccaneers-Raiders game, though, 45-20, with the Buccaneers finishing on top. It was kind of close until the fourth quarter, where the Buccaneers ran away with it, scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter. For quarterback comparisons, Tom Brady went 33 for 45, threw for 369 yards and 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. Passer rating of 127. Incredible night. Incredible. And Derek Carr, he went 24 for 36, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. So not bad, but not Tom Brady's numbers, of course. He had a 97.5 rating. So
he played incredible.
Yeah.
Really.
And surprisingly, the leading receiver for the Buccaneers was Scotty Miller. Someone who, I've kind of been a fan of.
In the past.
Yeah, in the past. Yeah. Drafted him in fantasy. Unfortunately, he's not on my team right now, but maybe he should be. He caught 6 balls for 109 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. Chris Godwin came right behind him with 88 yards and a touchdown. Gronk had 62 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown.
So balanced, really.
Really balanced. And then Tyler Johnson got 2 catches and got a touchdown. So he really spread the ball around quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
There was only 1 fumble. Gronk, of course, they recovered it, so it didn't, wasn't against them.
Mm-hmm.
Their rushing game left a lot to be desired. They really didn't use it a whole lot, but Fournette went 50 yards on 11 carries, and Ronald Jones went 34 yards on 13 carries. He did get a touchdown, as well as Tom Brady rushing. So there are 2 rushing touchdowns and 4 passing.
So Tom Brady, yeah, he really played super well. I mean, I think that now you even add Antonio Brown. I mean, they just look like they're in full go mode at this point, especially with Ronald. I mean, Ronald Jones hasn't been stellar, but Ronald Jones has been their best back. Mm-hmm. And if he can continue what he's continuing, then they can really help the offense. And Leonard Fournette seems like he might work a little bit more in their offense. So
yeah,
if he can get in the offense more, then they'll really be able to they could put it on some teams.
Yeah, they're really building, doing what they have to keep up with, like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Packers, the Seahawks, all of them. Like they keep updating their team to keep up with everyone else. And Tom Brady's kind of looking, like he's starting to get like a return to form. Like he kind of looks like he's starting to play really well again and kind of get into a rhythm, kind of connect with his receivers and whatnot. Yeah. And now that Gronk's back into the mix, and like you said, Antonio Brown. So it looks like they are a serious contender, and they're going to be a lot of fun to watch against these other big teams. At this point, I'd be pretty shocked if they didn't make the playoffs. Like they're just one of those teams that right now they just look really good, which is crazy to the Buccaneers. But on the Raiders side, you had Aguilar with 107 yards and a touchdown. Darren Waller got a touchdown, 6 catches for 50 yards. Their leading rusher was Jalen Richard, and he only got 24 yards. Yeah. And Josh Jacobs, he had 10 carries for 17 yards. He averaged 1.7 yards a carry. So that's really bad.
They tried to shut him down. They did their job.
So you gotta get Josh Jacobs in the game more. I mean, that's just something that you gotta do. He's a star player. So the Raiders defense, they kind of kept up with the Buccaneers for a little bit, but like I said, in the end, it kind of just got out of hand. Tom Brady did his thing, and the Buccaneers just were the better team here. So the Raiders, this is one of those games that, they kind of had to win. Like I said last week, I think it was kind of a statement for both teams. And I mean, right now we're talking about how the Buccaneers are definitely a playoff team. Yeah. The Raiders, I don't know. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs this year. It really depends because there's an extra team that's at it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But right now you have the Browns who are hot. Mm-hmm. And I mean, anything could change with that. But you have certain teams that are hot. And right now I just don't know if the Raiders are going to be good enough to get that push maybe next year.
Maybe. I don't know. I think we'll see with the Raiders. They're building a really good team there. Though it seems if Carr can continue to lead the team where he's at and Josh Jacobs gets better, I really like Jonathan Abrams a lot. So I think if he continues what he's doing with the defense, I mean, their defenses, they built a really good nucleus of players when they drafted. They got Max Crosby. They have really some decent depth players, and Jonathan Abrams is flying all over the field. I mean, he's a beast at safety. So if you have Jonathan Abrams and really leading the defense, if they can continue running with Josh Jacobs, they'll definitely get better. They'll get much better. And it seems like the team is definitely buying into Gruden's mentality and his methods. And so the Raiders are only going to get better, especially when they get fans into that nice stadium.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so they're a team to really look forward to in the next couple of years because, they're going to be way better than they have been probably in my lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
So one big thing is that they got to pressure the quarterback. They didn't get any sacks in this game, and that's one thing we said even last week. You got to pressure Tom Brady. That's when he kind of folds, and you got to pressure, these really good quarterbacks. So that's something that they're going to have to address and figure out and get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're a very exciting team to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see more from both teams and also more excited to see whether or not the Raiders can make the playoffs.
Yeah. And we'll see.
Yeah.
The AFC isn't easy this year, so.
Yeah. Another two teams that are not easy. The Steelers and Titans. What an insane game.
Yeah.
It seems that... I don't know what it is. I think that as a Ravens fan, I slightly have a warped opinion, but it seems as if when the Steelers need something to go right, it usually does. I don't know what it is. It's a Steelers thing. Like, even if it has nothing to do with Ben Roethlisberger, it just happens. But the Steelers, they won this game 27-24. It was close, but they really showed some cracks there in the second half. The first half, they just looked formidable. Tennessee was doing nothing. I think they had maybe...
Tennessee had 7 points in the first half.
Yeah, 7 points in the first half and like 11 yards. It was just ridiculous how bad. The Titans just looked nothing like they have the last 5 games that they played in.
Yeah.
And the Steelers, as a Ravens fan and even as a football fan, you're thinking, wow, the Steelers could be Super Bowl contenders. And you really look at them and you're saying, man, their receivers are just nuts. 4 receivers deep at least. Almost kind of like the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But you look at the Steelers, but I just feel like Ben Roethlisberger isn't showing the poise that he showed when he was younger. I mean, he had 32 of 49. He had 268 yards, which isn't bad, but he had 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And when we say 3 interceptions, I would say that he nearly could have had 5 or 6. There were multiple plays in that game where he just gave up the ball. It was unfortunate the cornerbacks just couldn't get on the ball, and that's not happening next week. But I will say in this game that Tennessee couldn't capitalize on the mistakes that Ben Roethlisberger was making. And so they, in the second half, when they almost made that push, and then ultimately Gostkowski missed another kick for them, and he's been just an unfortunate liability for Tennessee. That's the thing. It's disappointing from Gostkowski's point of view because he is an all-time great kicker, but it's more disappointing because it's just not character of him. Yeah. So Tennessee has to decide if they maybe need to look at signing another kicker. Maybe if Gostkowski is just not going to win them games or help them win games. So I think that Tennessee is definitely going to learn from this loss. This was probably not the worst loss for Tennessee. I think this was a big game for them because they really needed to prove that they can compete with Pittsburgh. But I think they absolutely did that. I think in the first half they could have gotten shut down, but they didn't.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these games we say that they are statement games and that they have to win to kind of prove, to everyone else that they can win these games. While Tennessee lost, I think that they still did well enough that, I'm pretty convinced that Tennessee is a legit team. The first half, they played really bad. Second half, they kind of pulled it together and made changes like good teams do and adjust it and almost came back and won this, and they would have at least sent it into overtime if it wasn't for a missed kick. So I do think that the Titans are a very good team, definitely playoff team. Who knows, we might see this matchup again in the playoffs, depending on seeding.
Maybe, yeah. But
it was, it was a good game. It was really unfortunate that it ended the way it did. Tannehill, kind of started to make a comeback. Derrick Henry still didn't break 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
However, A.J. Brown went for 153 yards on 6 catches, so he balled out to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
But so they're a very good team. They are. It's just this game. I don't know what happened in that first half. They just couldn't really get anything together. They looked like they were just kind of. I don't know if they were confused or just like they just couldn't figure it out how to to move the ball in the Steelers defense. But yeah, I think the Titans are really good. I wish this ended differently, but I'm looking forward to the Ravens taking on the undefeated Steelers. But yeah, it was one of those where I was kind of impressed with both teams. However, like you said, Roethlisberger showed a lot of rust and just throwing 3 interceptions. I mean, that's something that would normally lose you the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't here, but like you said, the Steelers, they get lucky a lot. So, I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So we're going to go from those really good teams to these 2 really bad teams who are still somehow fighting for their division at 2-5. So we have the Cowboys against the Washington football team. And this game ended 25-3. Andy Dalton, he played very poorly, and then he got a concussion. So
poor Andy Dalton. Man.
Yeah, he looked really bad. I don't know why he's randomly really bad, but he kind of sucks. And
for now at least.
Yeah, for now. It looks like he, might get replaced. We'll see what happens with the trades. But Kyle Allen, I mean, I was gonna say he didn't do much better. Like he did better, but not that much better. He got 194 yards and 2 touchdowns on 15. Went 15 for 25. Really, neither quarterback did amazing, and Zeke only got 45 yards. So I mean, it's like the Cowboys are just in a spot right now that Dak went down, and now it's just all hell rained loose. They just they it just seems like they don't know what to do now, and Dak going down was a much bigger loss than everyone thought, because everyone thought that Andy Dalton was one of the best backups in football as far as quarterbacks, and he's just come out and done absolutely nothing with a very talented cast. Amari Cooper had 80 yards as a leading receiver, and the next highest was Dalton Schultz with 22 yards. So there really was not much to be excited about there. On the Washington football team, good job. You beat the Cowboys, who absolutely suck. You doubled your win total on the year, and I think you're leading the division, maybe? I don't know. Them or the Eagles.
They're tied, I believe.
Yeah, so at 2-5, this is just a division no one wants to win. This is a bad game. I shouldn't have picked this game last week, but Antonio Gibson at least had 128 rushing yards, so that's something.
It maybe seemed a little juicier on paper.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact you maybe thought that Andy Dalton was going to play better than he did, but it seems like their line is just so bad, no matter who's at center,
and
they may not get blocked.
That's something that you can't really do anything about as a quarterback. I mean, if the line's not going to block for you, you're not going to make plays. And one of my favorite young receivers is on Washington, Terry McLaurin. I really do like him. He got 90 yards and 7 catches and a touchdown. So even on a bad team with Kyle Allen, he's still producing pretty good numbers. I would love to see him on an actually good team with a good quarterback, but here we are. And Washington, they just got in trouble because of some COVID violations, didn't they? With Dwayne Haskins. So that was interesting to watch. He's been sitting out the past couple weeks because of COVID stuff, so we were all wondering where he was. But yeah, these are 2 bad teams. They played like you would expect them to. The Cowboys a little bit worse than we expected them to, but yeah, I mean I don't have much to say about this one besides Washington. I mean, you're 2-5, leading the division, tied for the division.
Congrats.
either whoever wins that division is going to lose first round of the playoffs.
More than likely.
Yeah, so,
Well,
I don't have much to say about that one.
No, I think that Washington football team really has. It seems like they have a really decent base. I just don't think that they can waste Chase Young's youth, especially if Chase Young keeps on getting better, which he is, and he's already seems like he's one of the better defensive ends in the league when he's healthy. So the Washington football team just needs to decide if they really need to decide who their quarterback's going to be. And the Washington football team just need to decide where they need to go with from there. And they can get a lot better as a team once they get more comfortable, once Terry gets more comfortable with the quarterback that's going to be there all the time. Mm-hmm. But really, other than that, though, this was not a very interesting game. It was just two bad teams duking it out for the division that no one really cares about, because every single year we think they're going to be decent and they're always garbage.
Yep.
So it is what it is. But we'll go to two teams that are very, very well respected and much better than the teams we were just talking about, with the Seahawks and the Cardinals game. And let me tell you, folks, if you did not watch that game and you're listening to this, you missed out on an incredible game.
It was an instant classic.
It would never end, but it was still great football the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Very entertaining game. I mean, what can you say? Tyler Lockett had probably one of the better receiving days of all time. 15 receptions, 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
He beat Devontae Adams.
Yeah, he had 53 fantasy points. And I'm not trying to go fantasy in because of fantasy sections later, but 53 fantasy points. And that just, you got to mention that. There's no way.
Yeah, my brother Nick had Tyler Lockett, and he was going against Devontae Adams in his fantasy team. To break it off and talk about fantasy for a quick sec. And Devontae Adams scored, 46 points on him. He was like, well, my game's over. Tyler Lockett comes out and scores 53 and puts him above our other friend Austin, who was just kind of like, yeah, screw it. There's nothing I could do. But, so that was just really funny to watch.
Yeah, no, it was just so crazy because it just went back and forth. And it seemed like at times that Seattle really could have put a stranglehold on the game, but Russell Wilson made some un-Russell Wilson-like mistakes with 3 interceptions. He had 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but he had 388 yards, 33 of 50, so he really had a good game, but he just made un-Russell Wilson-like interceptions. Mm-hmm. They really didn't have... Seattle is... It's weird. Every single Seattle team that Russell Wilson seems led, they can never, ever keep running backs healthy. It's just insane to me. So now they have running backs down, but Russell Wilson led their team in rushing. He had 6 carries for 84 yards.
Wow.
So really, they didn't get a whole lot of effort out of anybody else. DeAndre Hopkins on the other side had played well. He had 10 receptions, 100 yards for a touchdown. He's continuing to eat in that offense. And Kyler Murray he played well. I mean, he did. He proved himself on the field because he got his team continually in scoring position. Even if they weren't making the field goals, he at least was getting them in scoring position. He had 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. And then also had 14 carries for 67 yards, which led the team. But Kenyon Drake just could not get really going, and then he got injured. And then Chase Edmonds had 5 carries and had 58 yards. So
insane.
It seems like Chase Edmonds is going to wind up taking that spot more forward just because Kenyon Drake's going to be injured.
Kenyon Drake might not get his starting position back.
We'll see. I think Kenyon Drake is just at the very least, he's a very good complimentary back when he does come back. Larry Fitzgerald had 8 catches, 62 yards. He got over the most catches in one stadium, I believe that was broken by Jerry Rice and Candlestick. Awesome. So congrats to him. But
love Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh yeah, a lot of respect for him. But this game was, very, very entertaining. I think that both teams are great. And then you figure with that division, it's just crazy with the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Rams. That division is just crazy. So, and like you said, with the spots, we have 4 spots that teams could get in. So you really have to push for these spots because anyone 1 through 4 can get in if you're good enough. So
the whole division could really get in.
Yep, the whole division could get in, and the NFC West is good enough. I think they're a good enough division to get 4 people in.
Yeah, they're probably the best division in football right now.
As of right now, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, last week I was talking about who was. I think I talked about the AFC North just because of how good they are. But they're even better record-wise. Right now, they're all very close. The division games are crazy. I'm looking forward to seeing just all the division games in that division, going forward. And this was a classic game, and honestly, I could see it becoming a pretty fun rivalry. I mean, Seahawks Cardinals with Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and just all the talent on these teams. You could have really great games for the next few coming years that it could just make these games a lot of fun. And something that was just noteworthy that happened during that game was when Russell Wilson threw a interception, and it looked like a surefire pick six, and DK Metcalf chased this man like 90 yards and tackled him like on the 7 or something around that. So then the Cardinals go for it, and they end up getting no points. So DK Metcalf essentially kept the Cardinals from getting 7 points. They still lost in the end, but still, that's crazy. That's just insane. Like, even I don't remember who intercepted it, but I watched. It was Budda Baker, right? Yep. So yeah, even Budda Baker, he was mic'd up during that, and he was like, "Man, how did he catch up to me?" Like afterwards, he's like, "How did that boy catch up to me?"
Yeah,
and like it was just the speed was just crazy. It was just it shouldn't have happened. Like it was crazy. Yeah. So
it was funny. Did you hear me say that that DK was gonna get him?
I don't know if I did.
You didn't? Yeah, when Budda Baker intercepted the ball, somebody when we were watching it said pick 6, and I was like, "Don't worry, DK, my boy DK's gonna get him." And then
they did.
I just watched him streak all the way down the field to make the tackle.
Just so fast.
He is DK Metcalf is he's a player, man, that got a lot of respect for. He is just always hustling, and even though he really had an insanely underwhelming night for DK Metcalf, you see those plays, and those are the kind of players that you want playing for your organization. The players that will literally run 30 some yards extra to make an extra tackle and save 7 points. And that's the kind of player that DK Metcalf is. And
yeah,
I mean, that's all. I mean, that play is all that you need to see from DK Metcalf, and to know that he's an absolute baller.
Yeah, for sure. And the Seahawks are full of ballers.
Oh yeah.
That's why it's like you play man, they'll beat you. If you play zone, they'll beat you. Russell's always looking to rush. He's a mobile quarterback, so they're a very hard team to defend against. And I mean, really, Arizona is too, because Kyler Murray is the same type of way, really. Whereas he's a mobile quarterback, he's very good. He's got D-Hop. They've got Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake. So they're a hard team to defend against, too. So they're really just these two powerhouses. And it was so much fun to watch them go at it. Went into overtime till like the end of overtime.
Yeah.
Almost. So it's a classic that I think we're going to see a lot more classic games from these two teams when they face each other. And it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
A lot to be excited about from both teams, really. So moving from these great games into next week's potentially great games. First one we're going to look at is the Bears-Saints. Two pretty good teams. The Saints is looking like they're having some struggles we weren't expecting them to have. Drew Brees isn't looking as great as we, all know him to be. They're really just not clicking like we're used to them clicking, and they're just not the same Saints. Now, on the other side of the Bears, they're not the same Bears we're used to, really. I mean, they're not really the same Bears we're used to because they're pretty good. They're 5-2.
Yeah.
Nick Foles is
they're not bad.
Yeah. Nick Foles is serviceable enough to keep them in games. However, he did He had 28 for 40, 261 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. So not great. But I don't even know if you could say that's serviceable
Not
for
great
that
in
game.
this one.
Yeah, that was last week against the Rams. So really not great. However, the Rams do have a much better defense than the Saints do. Rushing, really not a whole lot to write home about either. Their rushing game wasn't great last week. So no touchdowns on the offense. Only 10 points scored against the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
However, like I said, I think the Rams defense is better than the Saints, and the Saints haven't been that great. So I think this could be it could be a pretty close game, especially if the Bears defense can put some pressure on Drew Brees, kind of get him out of his comfort zone. He's already not playing great. Last week, he threw for 287 yards, 2 touchdowns on 36 throws, completed 29. So he had a pretty good week last week.
Mm-hmm.
Kamara had a pretty decent day, 83 yards. Latavius Murray helped him out, adding another 47. No receiver broke 100 yards. Callaway was the leading receiver with 75 yards. A touchdown went to Jarrett Cook and Deontay Harris. And then Drew Brees ran in another touchdown. So I think it could really go either way this game.
So who do you think?
I'm going to say the Bears. I'm going to give it to the Bears. I'm going to say that the Saints defense, Nick Foles, will do enough to keep up with Drew Brees. I don't know if Michael Thomas is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone does. It looks like it's kind of a team issue / injury / we don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
So if Michael Thomas doesn't come back, I'm going to say the Bears will win it for sure. If he does come back, I'm still just going to stick with the Bears. I feel like their defense can maybe do enough with the struggling Saints since they haven't really gotten into rhythm. Nick Foles, when he's good, he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm going to go with them. What about you?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird picking against the Saints.
I don't think that the Saints... The problem is the Saints' defense isn't very great, and their line isn't great, and really Drew Brees just doesn't look... He just doesn't look Drew Brees. He seems like he's slowing down a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think I still got to give it to the Saints. I just think the Saints just have so much offensive firepower, and you saw the Rams really do what they wanted more against them receiving. They spread it out, but they also ran some. So you see, if Chicago is unable to beat that, if they're unable to beat the Rams, then I don't think that Jared Goff is better than Drew Brees still. So I just see, I don't see the Bears really tightening the defense too much. But I could see the game being low scoring, but I will give it to the Saints.
Well, the one reason that I think that the Bears might bounce back this week is because you really had no one on the offense on the Bears do anything last week. Mm-hmm. And you had Nick Foles turn over the ball twice. So if you can cut back on the turnovers, which, they might be able to do against the Saints, and if you can really just get them to do anything, I think that they can at least keep up with the Saints, with Drew Brees and all them. They couldn't with the Rams, but again, they had a better defense. So I feel like with a drop in defense, I feel like it'll be closer. And I could see it in the 20s, really both teams. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm gonna go with my gut and say the Bears.
Okay. Well, since I said that I felt like the Saints would win, and the Bears did lose to the Rams. And now we'll move on to the Rams in Miami. This is an interesting game. We got Tua. It's Tua time in Miami.
It is.
Kind of unfortunate at the expense of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but Tua seems like he's really ready to start. I think that the line has been good enough that maybe Miami's ready to really give him the reins at 3-3. They can... I think the Dolphins have a chance here to potentially fight for the division with at least maybe getting second, with the Jets not being good at all, and an understatement really, not being good at all. They're awful. The Patriots kind of dragging their feet, as uncharacteristically Patriots teams do.
They missed the playoffs.
Me too. But so Miami, I think this is a right time for Miami right out of the bye to really give Tua a go and see what he can do against Aaron Donald and the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams are coming off of a good win. They're 5-2. Like we've been saying with the NFC West teams, those teams are really good teams.
Yeah.
Even the Rams, and it seems the Rams and Cardinals, and maybe the Rams and Cardinals are fighting for the third, fourth teams in that division. Where do you even place them? Where do you place the Niners in the division? So it's the Rams are trying to. This is a statement game. I wouldn't say it's a huge statement game, but it's a small statement game for the Rams, maybe to prove, hey, we're 5-2. We're in the best division. We need to beat you guys. I think that the Rams do get it done. I think the Rams are the better team. I think Tua is probably going to have a couple wow plays in this game for sure. I could see maybe a juke here, a good run play there, because it's Tua. Maybe have a couple good throws. So I'm really excited for Tua. I'm glad he got back from his injury, and I'm excited to see more from him. What do you think, Josh? Give me a prediction. How do you feel about Tua?
I think he will. I think he'll definitely add some spice into the offense. I mean, he's something that. I mean, he's different than Fitzpatrick. It was unfortunate that, he got seated while he was still playing decently. However, everyone knew this was coming. So I feel bad for him, but at the same time, you knew this was going to happen. So I really don't know what to expect because Tua was obviously great in college. He got injured, and now he's going to be playing for the Dolphins. So we saw him 2 weeks ago. Very little, though. We didn't get to see a whole lot of him. So I'm excited to see a full game of Tua after a bye week. So, he kind of has time to learn the offense a bit. Kind of has time to at least get a little bit of chemistry with the receivers.
Gel with the team a little bit, at least.
Yeah. So the bye came at a good time, or at least they chose Tua to take over at a good time. I'm excited. I don't think it's a bad move at all. I think, you're 3-3 in the AFC. Ryan Fitzpatrick, we all know who he is. He's a guy who'll win you games, but will he get you to the playoffs? At this point, probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
So you got to look at, we're 3-3. Let's throw in Tua. Maybe he'll be better than everyone thinks.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll get us some wins. And hey, if he doesn't get us wins, at least he's getting some game time experience. And next year he'll be better.
Exactly.
And he can develop. So I think it's a really good move. And, it might not be super popular because of Fitzpatrick. And, everyone loves him. And seeing him heartbroken is sad. But, I mean, it's a business, and I think that the best move for them is to put in Tua. And, everyone's excited to see him. So, as long as he's game ready and everything, which he should be for sure, I think it's a good move, and it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Going from Tua over to the 49ers and the Seahawks, a game that should be very juicy and very good. The Seahawks, obviously, we talked about earlier tonight. They're amazing. We love them. The offense is insane. The defense, leaves some stuff to be desired. They're no Legion of Boom. They just let, the Cardinals score 37 points against them. Not really a typical Seahawk defense that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
However, their offense is firing on all cylinders. They're really keeping them in the games. They're just outscoring the other opponents, even if the other opponents score a lot. Obviously, besides the Cardinals, but that was a super hard-fought game. So you had this team coming into going up against the Niners, who have been pretty injury-riddled, just really injured. However, they're still 4-3. They have Garoppolo, who's not as good as maybe we had hoped he was. Last week...
I guess maybe as people thought he would be.
Yeah, last week he went 20 for 25, 277 yards, and no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So we had similar stats earlier when we were talking about Nick Foles with the 2 interceptions and actually they're almost identical stats, at least in terms of yardage. But then we also had Jeffrey Wilson on the ground rushing for 112 yards, 3 touchdowns on 17 carries. However, he had a high ankle sprain. Now he's going to IR, and it's unfortunate. So now Hasty's coming in, and I know originally they were kind of saying the ball could go either way, it was going to be pretty split, and they weren't really sure who was going to get the ball more. So now it's Hasty and McKinnon. So it's going to be, those two backs getting a lot of work now because Wilson's down, Mostert's down. So they're dealing with a lot of injury.
Yeah.
I think that the Seahawks are going to win this. I think they're a better team offensively. Russell Wilson against Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, come on, it's Russell Wilson all day. Same with those receivers. I mean, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You have Brandon Ayuk on the Niners, who did have 115 yards last week. And Deebo Samuels, who had 65 yards. But, I mean, Tyler Lockett had 200 yards last week on 15 catches and 3 touchdowns. And the crazy thing is that you could really see that from a few of the Seahawks receivers. If I told you they got 100 or 200 yards, you wouldn't be overly surprised. That's just how good their receivers are.
Yeah.
So I think the Seahawks will kind of run away with it, or at least score on them and outscore them by a decent amount.
Yeah.
I just think that the Seahawks are just so good, and it's really hard to choose against them. And yeah, I mean, I think it could be a very good game, but I think the Seahawks will win. What about you?
I think the Seahawks will probably win the game as well. I think the Niners are a pretty decent team, but they're just so banged up. They really are. I mean, it really is a bummer for them because they just have so many injuries. I mean, every single time it seems like Deebo Samuel's injured again. Deebo Samuel's just came back from IR. I've had him in fantasy. He went on IR, came back, and then went back on IR now with a hamstring. So it's just crazy and it's just unfortunate for the Niners, but it is what it is. It's a next man up thing, but I just don't think they have the talent on their roster right now to beat Seattle.
Full strength, maybe they can,
Exactly. Full strength, I mean, sure, we're Nick Bosa and other players, but I think the game will be better moving forward just because this is going to be a, I guess, revenge game, comeback game, I would say. For Seattle, they need to make a better statement against another division rival because this is a big division game because they're 2-1. They're 2-1 in the division, and so are also the Cardinals. So they need to win this game to make a bigger statement in their division down the road.
Yeah, it could really come down to division wins.
Oh, definitely.
Because, I mean, these teams could very well be tied in the end. And, so this is a very big game.
Yeah. Like I said, I see Seattle winning it.
Yeah, I think so.
Another game that we're going to be covering would be Minnesota and Green Bay. While this game may not seem as juicy, I think Minnesota 1-5, we would say they're kind of in that little bunch with the Falcons, I guess, as like a really talented bad team. Yeah. Like we'll say that they have it seems as if the Vikings on offense have every single conceivable component to be good, but they're just not. So the Vikings have to decide where they're going from here, whether that's to trade Adam Thielen before the trade deadline. We're not sure, but I think that this game is juicier than the record that the Vikings have because the Vikings could come out and Kirk Cousins could throw all over the field, although he only has 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions this year. Wow. But I think that he could come out and throw all over the field, and if they decide not to trade Thielen, then I think Thielen gets into the offense no matter what. And Dalvin Cook has had a week off because they had their bye week last week, so now he'll hopefully be healthier because Madison was a little bit underwhelming in their offense, and they just never really got anything going after the game that they lost when they lost to Atlanta. So I'm excited to see if the Vikings can bounce back. But I don't think they will. I think the Packers will beat them. But I think the game will be closer than the records will. I could see a 30-30, 35-28 or 35-31. I could see it being a higher scoring game because the Vikings have unloaded players. They allowed us to rob them and give us Yannick Ngakoue this last week. So the Vikings are kind of unloading players, realizing that they may not be able to win now and maybe push for next season. So but I see the Packers winning this. What do you think?
I want to say the Vikings with all my heart. And Aaron Rodgers has shown that, He's capable of having bad games, and
as anyone is.
You never know what Kirk Cousins you're gonna get, and you never know what Vikings team you're gonna get. And this is a division game, so it's just like one of those things that it can go either way. It really can, and I think it will be close, or at least closer than a lot of people will expect. Just because it's a bad team against a good team, on paper or at least record wise. Even though the Vikings are better, I think, than their record shows, at least on certainly. Paper. They have a lot of potential.
Talent-wise,
for sure.
Yeah.
But I am going to go with the Packers, as much as it pains me to say. I think that they're just better. I can't see Aaron Rodgers losing this one. He doesn't have many quote-unquote bad games in a season. So I don't think this is going to be one of his bad games. I think he's going to go in there. He's got Devontae Adams, who's just been tearing it up when healthy. Just absolutely just doing whatever he wants with defenses. So I can't pick against the Packers. I'm rooting for the Vikings, but I think the Packers got this, and I think that it'll be close. But I could see them kind of taking control later on in the game. Yeah, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be, at the very least, it'll be a very competitive game.
Yeah, I don't think at any point either team will be fully out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's all the games we're talking about. So we're just going to move right on over to the Ravens. Yeah. And they've been on bye the past week, so we don't have a whole lot to talk about, but we have a little bit to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We have next week's game to talk about. The Ravens-Steelers going up against the undefeated Steelers at 1 o'clock. That's a really big game. A really, really big game. And that's a game that, it's a division game. It's against an undefeated team. It's against a future playoff team.
Yeah.
So this is a really big game for Baltimore, and it's a really big game for Pittsburgh. It's a huge game for both teams because right now, I think I saw in the power rankings, the Steelers are 1, Ravens are 4, and, that's whatever. But the whole country really believes in both teams as good teams.
The best team, potentially, in the league, or at least one of the best teams.
Yeah. So you have both of these powerhouses fighting each other, and really, thankfully, it's Thanksgiving the next time we play them, but until the next time we play them, whoever wins this is going to be looked at as either the best or one of the best in the AFC, and they're just going to be looked at as better than the other because, they beat them.
Yeah.
And, top 5 teams, the Ravens and Steelers are both up there.
Mm-hmm.
So this could potentially put the Ravens higher on the map, even though, they're very well respected, and I'm not... With, Joe Flacco, we had the whole disrespect era. This era with Lamar, we're pretty respected.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily... It is and it isn't, but a prove-it game for both teams. It's just one of those where whoever loses, no one's going to be like, man, they suck. But, at the same time, whoever wins, they're going to be like, oh, okay, this is, a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's going to be close. It's going to be a Ravens-Steelers game. It's going to be one of those that, it'll probably... I think it'll be until, the end. It'll come down to the end at some point. Either the last drive or some play in the last quarter. I don't think it's going to be one of those we've seen in the past few years where the Ravens just take a hold of the win and just run away with it. I think it's going to be a lot closer. The Steelers' defense is really good. The Ravens' defense is really good, and both offenses are really good. Although the Ravens' offense is still trying to find its identity, I think after the bye week, they'll be a little bit better and a little bit more in sync.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Ngakoue.
Yannick Ngakoue is a big addition from the Vikings. We didn't really think we weren't sure whether or not that would even be possible.
Did not think that would be possible.
We're glad that we got him. I'm so excited to see. I don't know. I feel like I have much too much confidence in the Ravens as a team at this point, but I just don't see the Ravens losing this game. I think that the Ravens I think this is a different team than past years where we've needed to make statements and we haven't made the statements that we've needed to make. I know that we haven't necessarily gotten it done against the Chiefs, but I don't think that that's only in part due to Lamar. I think it has to do down to coaching. It seems as if our coaching staff is always underprepared for very, very great teams, and that's disappointing. So I'm not going to put every single loss on Lamar. But I think that this game is a bigger game just because I think we can prove that, hey, we're definitely better than them. And I do think that we're better than the Steelers. I know that the Steelers are definitely a great team, but I think that our defense is better and can really subdue their offense. Our defense is as good as it's been in past years. With Yannick Ngakoue coming in, he's going to put a lot of pressure on the line of Pittsburgh, and I think that he gets to the quarterback early and often. I think that Ben Roethlisberger is not going to like him after this game. But yeah. I see the Ravens winning this game. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but I just think that the Ravens are just going to play well enough to at least maybe make more of a statement and say, hey, like, we're definitely the better team here. Mm-hmm. Don't forget that we won the AFC North, and we have the reigning MVP on our team. Yeah. So I did have a question for you, though. I was actually kind of wondering, will the acquisition of Yannick Ngakoue, and now we're potentially, as we said earlier, potentially seeing Zach Ertz, maybe make us a legit Super Bowl contender, like legitimate?
All right, so before this trade deadline, we had 2 less players and a potentially third less player, depending on if we get Zach Ertz.
I guess I would also say Dez Bryant.
Yeah, that's who I was
potentially, yeah.
So we got Ngakoue, who, in my opinion, it took us from, because where we were before these trades, I don't know if I would say we were a Super Bowl contender. All right, never mind. I would say that we were, but I wouldn't say that we were one of the strongest ones, even in the AFC, just because of our offense. Our defense got, at least for right now, with this newest addition with Ngakoue, I think that immediately put us in Super Bowl contention. I mean, it made our defense so much better. That adds to the pass rush, which helps the cornerbacks, which helps just our overall defense with, run stuffing, pass. He's just such a huge addition, especially with still having Judon, because that's going to make him better. It's just going to open up things for him. So I think that with him alone, we're Super Bowl contenders, and we're on the higher end of Super Bowl contenders. I think we're a completely different team now with him than we were when we played the Chiefs last.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah, I do think we're a Super Bowl contender, and then you add in Dez Bryant, who, let's say in the second half of the season, or even fourth quarter of the season, like last quarter, let's say he gets into game shape and gets into some games. Who's to say he's not, Dez Bryant, just as good as we all remember him.
And even Zach Ertz, really, because, Zach Ertz is on IR, so he won't be able to come back till week 11. But, like you're saying, though, those players will make more of an impact as we're pushing towards the playoffs, really.
Exactly. And then once we get in the playoffs, they'll be there to help us beat these amazing teams. And Zach Ertz, he's injured now, but let's say we do trade for him.
Imagine Zach Ertz in a Ravens jersey on Thanksgiving night, man.
Yeah, I guess it could happen, potentially, depending on how healthy he is.
Yeah.
But let's say, Zach Ertz comes in, Dez Bryant, and Ngakoue. That pretty much puts us, I would say that puts us as much talent as, like, the Chiefs. I'd say that gives us more talent on defense.
Yeah.
Obviously. But on offense, I think that puts us right up there with them, because we'd have a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that, especially if we make the Ertz move, even if we don't, I think
even if we don't,
I think we're right now still a very high contender for the Super Bowl. I think I think only the Chiefs and Steelers maybe are like the other 2 teams that really have a chance just this year. I think those are the top 3 teams in my opinion. You got the Titans, who are great, but I don't know if they're like Super Bowl just yet. I don't know. Super Bowl
contenders.
Same with the Bills, like they're really good, but they just choked like the Titans last week, didn't really do much, or when they played. But yeah, I 100% do think that we are Super Bowl contenders and that we're really making moves to win the Super Bowl. Because, I mean, you can see it seems like every time we lose a bad game, we make a move to fix our biggest mistake and our biggest area of weakness. And we've really done that with, the pass rush has been a big thing for the Ravens. So we just haven't been able to get. And they went out and made this move that earlier on in the season they were trying. And they even offered a second round earlier on. And, it didn't work out then. But, I mean, I'd say it worked out better now for us. Now that we got them for like a third and a fifth. And then, adding Des Bryant to the practice squad. I mean, like, last year, we offered him a deal. Like, it's just, like, all this stuff that we're getting these players that we wanted before at a much cheaper deal now.
Stay connected with them, too.
Yeah, and this is, like, what good teams do. Eric DeCosta is just a god when it comes to making trades and stuff. So, all that to say, I think we're definitely Super Bowl contenders.
And you think we're going to win this game?
I do, I think we will. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game from both teams. It could really go either way. I think it could be won by a field goal. It could be won by a touchdown. I think it'll be, like, one score. I think it's going to be a classic Ravens-Steelers game, and I think it's going to be really good, and I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, I am as well. And with that, we'll hop into the fantasy section. Josh, what is one of your favorite waiver wire pickups?
There's one person that should be on everyone's mind right now. So he's available in 68.6% of leagues right now. So there's a chance that he's, on your waiver wire. Now, when this is released, I guess waivers would have already passed, but maybe, just maybe, he's still in your free agency. But Chase Edmonds, there's no other player that you should be targeting higher than him this week. I mean, he got 21 points just off of 5 carries and 7 receptions. So he's gonna be great. He's gonna be like a workhorse there. I mean, he's on Arizona's offense. Like, he's gonna eat and he's gonna be really good. And like I said earlier, I feel like he could be good enough that Kenyon Drake doesn't even get the starting position back. So we'll see, but he's the guy to get right now. For even less obvious, I would say someone to look at, maybe either not pick up or put him on your bench and stash him, is Brandon Ayuk. Like, he's pretty good. He got 17.5 points last week. He's hit 21 points in week 2, 13 in week 3. He only had 7 and 9 the past 2 weeks. But he's someone that, could be decent. And with all the injuries there, you never know if, someone gets injured and he's especially the next man Debo up. Out, with Debo out, exactly. So there's an injury. So I think he's a good person to look at. He's not a bad player at all to target, and at least stash him and see how he does. One other person I was going to say was Michael Hasty, just with Wilson out now for a few weeks. He's, him and McKinnon are like the two guys. So depending on who gets the ball, he's owned in 6% of the league. So he's someone to at least get and stash and, wait to see how he gets used in the offense. And he's someone that'll be interesting to see how he gets used. And he's worth, I think, at least looking at maybe a pickup. But do you have any that you're thinking of?
Someone, I would say maybe I've actually considered maybe trying to, well, I haven't considered it, but I think that if you for some reason are in an insane quarterback bind, maybe Tua would be somebody to pick up, but I think that you'd maybe want to wait on him. Just because he'll be available in any league no matter what at this point. But,
I want to say that I've said this before in fantasy leagues. I'm sorry. I said this before in previous episodes, and I just want to say that you should have probably picked him up because he's still looking pretty good, and he's still only owned in 55% of fantasy leagues. So chances are he'll still probably be available when this comes out. Cole Beasley, he's still playing really well. I mean, he had 11 receptions last week, 112 yards, 22.2 points, 14 before. So, I mean, he's doing at least flex numbers. I mean, 12, 16, 12, 11, 14, 22. It's like he just needs like a touchdown or just a big gain to really be super relevant. But he's the 19th ranked receiver. He's still available in a lot of leagues. Ours, unfortunately, is not. But definitely someone to look at. But Yeah, was there anyone else for you, or is that
No,
pretty
not
much...
really, actually.
All right. The final segment of our podcast is our Simply Splendid Player of the Week. And I'll ask you first, who was your Simply Splendid Player of the Week? There were quite a bit this week.
I mean, honestly, personally, for me, on my fantasy team, I wouldn't say I had anyone that was simply splendid, really.
But just in the NFL.
In the NFL, I mean, Devontae Adams really ate in that. Devontae Adams is an incredible player, and the fact he even got the amount of points he got was nuts.
Yeah. He had a great day.
I would probably say Devontae Adams having 44.6 fantasy points would do it for me.
Yeah. I'm going to go with my Simply Splendid Player of the Week would be Tyler Lockett. We talked about him earlier. It's just, how can he not be? 15 receptions, 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
They just played
unheard
too well.
of. Yeah, it makes no sense.
They're
53.
too simply splendid.
Yeah, 53 fantasy points, just insane. And the Seahawks still lost, but still just insane. Simply splendid, perfectly splendid, incredibly splendid. One of the best performances I've seen in my life from a receiver. Just incredible. So, yeah, that has to be mine. Both receivers had very similar stats. They were only 4 yards off of each other, 2 catches and 1 touchdown off. But yeah, they were very close to each other. So I think they both are very deserving of the Simply Splendid award this week.
Yes, they are.
With that, I think that concludes everything in our episode. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I meant to talk about this in the beginning, but don't forget to check out our Patreon. We just launched it. It's up. There's a lot of tiers for you to check out. We're looking at upgrading some equipment and stuff, so definitely check them out. And if you feel like donating, do it. So
we appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you listening. Very happy to get 8 weeks in. We're about halfway through the season.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks so much, and we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.